And Ms. Coveray, if you could please have roll call?
Here.
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 Here. And I'd like to call on Mr. Valenti to please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Right hand over your heart. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Valenti. Now we will look at item number 4, our governance team meeting guidelines. And the governance team members will review. Thank you. We will now move on to item number 5, approval of agenda. Do I have a motion?
Make the motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Thank you. We will now move on to item 6, communications, board member acknowledgements and commendations. And we will start off with Trustee Jordan.
I'm happy to be here tonight. We just came back from the annual education conference, which was amazing. It was my first one in person, and so I was very happy to be there and learn some really amazing things and bring that back to our community and to our district. I'm also happy to see here tonight in the audience a former board member, and so I'm excited to hear from him tonight as well. I'm looking forward to the rest of the meeting.
Thank you. Trustee Brusuela?
Just happy to be back again, and I agree with everything that our other board members said too. And so we move on. Yay.
Thank you. Trustee Koo?
Just want to echo Trustee Jordan. Attended at the school board's conference last week and really enjoyed and appreciated hearing from just a bunch of workshops, as well as kind of engaging and connecting with school members from our region as well as across the state. It was just nice to see people that I haven't seen in a couple of years, so it's just really great to see that. Also, just wish everybody happy holidays. I know we're racing towards the end of the year, but just want to wish everybody happy holidays and hope everyone stays safe and healthy.
Thank you. I, like my fellow trustees, appreciated the time that we had to re-engage with fellow colleagues, not just our local San Mateo County colleagues from from here in the northern area of San Mateo County, but across the state. And it was definitely something to be celebrated, and for me, a highlight to kick off the holidays. So I too would like to extend well wishes and happy holidays to you and your families. And I too am happy to see a former colleague join us this evening. And thank you all. So we would like to turn the time over to our superintendent for his comments.
Thank you. So we just finished, or actually is just finishing up, our Jefferson Elementary School District sponsored vaccination clinic for vaccines for 5 to 11-year-olds. Today they surprised us and said we're also doing adult boosters. So many parents who came along with their children got their vaccines. They called their brothers or sisters, cousins. So there were quite a few folks getting boosted tonight as well. That was exciting to see. We're still seeing COVID in our schools. Obviously, COVID is in our community, and so it bleeds into our schools. A lot of community-based transmissions. We're not seeing school-based transmissions, so we continue to hope that whatever variant comes, that the practices we have in our schools keep transmissions low in the school setting. And then, the December meeting is always a neat meeting because it culminates a year or begins a year for somebody. And so all of you are having an anniversary, and we have two. We have Ms. Jordan, who's completing her first year as a school board member. She's still alive and she's breathing, and Mrs. Rizal, I believe this is your 40th year? I think 1981.
41st.
Yeah. Beginning your 41st, so congratulations on that. And I haven't kept track of yours, Ms. Leon Ai or Mr. Ku, but congratulations on yet another year of service completed.
Thank you, Superintendent Vidalis. And I'm glad to hear that we're not offering the booster. I think that's great that our families can also access that. We will now move on to number 7, general functions. And 7A is our consent agenda. And the administration recommends approval of the starred items on the rest of the agenda. And do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the starred items on the agenda.
Second.
We have a first and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We will now move on to item E, tentative agreement between Jefferson Elementary School District and AFT 3267 for 2021-2022. The administration recommends approval of the tentative agreement for the 2021-2024 to 2024 collective bargaining agreement between AFT Local 3267 and the Jefferson Elementary School District pending AB 1200 approval by the San Mateo County Office of Education and ratification by the bargaining unit. The agreement effective July 1st, 2021 includes notifying longevity steps 14 to 30 on the salary schedules, $3,000 off schedule one-time payment for all unit members employed by the district and in paid status on December 1st, 2021, and other agreements on health and welfare stipends, substitute coverage during prep periods, IEP preparation and meetings, leave provisions and evaluations as specified in the attached tentative agreement. These agreements represent the conclusion of the 2021-2022 negotiations between AFT 3267 and the Jefferson Elementary School District. Do we have a conversation or dialogue around this, Superintendent Vidalis?
I believe we can say that the AB 1200 has been approved by the County Office of Education, and we do have a ratification by the bargaining unit on this agreement.
Thank you. Do we have any questions or comments from the board? If not, I'd like to ask for a motion.
I will make a motion that we approve tentative agreement for the 2021-2024 collective bargaining agreement between AFT Local 3267 and the Jefferson Elementary School District as presented.
Second.
motion.
Thank you. We have a first and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We will now move on to item F, compensation for underrepresented certificated, underrepresented classified, and confidential classified employees for 2021-2022. The administration recommends approval pending AB 1200 approval by the San Mateo County Office of Education of a 0.54% salary increase to the salary schedules commensurate with other employee groups, a $3,000 off schedule one-time payment prorated based on FTE for qualifying employees employed by the district and in paid status as of December 1st, 2021, and an equivalent adjustment made to district health and welfare benefit contributions to underrepresented certificated and confidential classified employees, psychologists, management, principals, vice principals, deans, program coordinators, program directors and directors, assistant superintendents, and superintendent effective July 1st, 2021. Do we have any questions or dialogue? If not, I'd like to ask for a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the item as presented.
Second.
We have a first and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We will now move on to item G, Tentative Agreement between Jefferson Elementary School District and CSEA number 233 for 2021 to 2022. The administration recommends approval of the tentative agreement for the 2021-2022 collective bargaining agreement between CSEA Local 233 and the Jefferson Elementary School District, pending AB 1200, approval by the San Mateo County Office of Education. The agreement effective July 1st includes a 0.54% salary increase to the salary schedules, $3,000 off schedule one-time payment prorated based on FTE for unit members employed by the district and in paid status as of December 1st, 2021, and other agreements on health and welfare and hours and conditions of employment as specified in the attached tentative agreement. These agreements represent the conclusion of the 2021-2022 negotiations between CSEA Local 233 and the Jefferson Elementary School District. Do we have any questions or comments for dialogue? If not, I'd like to ask for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the tentative agreement between Jefferson Elementary School District and CSEA number 233 for the 2021-2022 school year.
Second motion.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We will now move on to item H, Governing Board Stipend Increase for 2021 to 2022. The Governing Board will consider adjusting the Governing Board's monthly stipend with an increase of 0.54% from $273.21 to $274.69 per month, effective July 1st, 2021. Do we have any questions or comments?
The only comment I make is this will only be for 4 board members because I'm not getting it. I don't get it. I mean, I've chosen not to be paid to be on the board from a long time ago, so I just want to make sure people know that I'm not getting it.
Thank you, Trustee Brusuela. Were you also making a motion, or were you just, that was your comment?
Oh, no, I wanted to make the comment, but I'll make the motion.
Okay.
That we approve it.
Do we have any other questions or comments from? Okay, so you're going to make a motion, Ms.
Yeah,
Trustee
I'll make a
Brusuela?
motion.
Thank you.
For the 4 board members to receive this.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
I want to thank the district for our stipend. We appreciate this. I also want to thank Trustee Brusuela.
Make an explanation for everybody. In order for me to retire from PERS, I had to give it all up. Okay? Not that I really want the money. I don't need the money, but that's what happened. So I had to say no to everything that I did. So don't think I'm just being,
So, board members, you've heard my reasoning behind this and why I insist that we continue having this. I think board service should not be something that will be a financial hurdle for any member of our community. And this small stipend can support the board members' participation in different events in the community, your travel, and you don't get any other stipends. So that's why I always insist, even though you always want to refuse it, I insist that we can maintain this so that we can have board service available to anybody who desires.
Thank you, Superintendent. We will now move on to item I, Governing Board and Personnel Commission Health and Welfare Contribution Change. The administration recommends approval of health and welfare contribution levels for members of the Governing Board and Personnel Commission opting for coverage to remain consistent with those offered to certificated and classified bargaining unit members. Do we have any comments or questions regarding this item? If not, I'd like to ask for a motion.
I will make a motion that we approve the healthcare and welfare contribution levels for members of the governing board and personnel commission as presented.
second motion.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We will now move on to item 8B, Educator Effectiveness Block Grant Approval. School districts that receive Educator Effectiveness Block Grant funds pursuant to California Education Code, EC Section 41480A, are required to develop and adopt a plan by December 30th, 2021, that delineates the expenditure of funds, a portion including the professional development of teachers, administrators, paraprofessionals, and classified staff. The administration recommends the board adopt the plan for the Educator Effectiveness Block Grant. And we will turn this over to Ms. Scott.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
So last meeting, I was able to present information about the Educator Effectiveness Block Grant. So just as a reminder, this is a block amount of money that we're able to use for professional development over the next 5 years. We have sufficient funds set aside for PD for the next 2 years. So the plan utilizes these funds for Institute Days from 2023 to 2026.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. Do we have any questions for Ms. Scott or about this grant? I'd like to then ask for a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the Educator Effectiveness Block Grant as presented.
Second.
We have a first and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We will now move on to item 9, business and financial procedures. Item 9B, resolution number 21-12-08. The administration recommends that the board adopt resolution number 21-12-08, authorizing signatories for the school district. Do we have any questions
This
on this?
is, I think it's adding Mr. Lauro as a signatory and taking Ms. Kessler off. So usually we do this whenever we have a staff change.
Thank you. We do not have any questions from the board. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we adopt resolution number 21-12-08, authorizing signatories for the school district.
We have a motion.
Second.
We have a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Item 9C, San Francisco Public Utility Commission Easement Amendment Agreement. The administration recommends approval of an easement amendment agreement with the City and County of San Francisco, a municipal corporation acting through its Public Utilities Commission, to fix the location of an already existing floating easement at 305 Eastmore Avenue as part of the Jefferson Elementary School District Faculty and Staff Housing Project. Did we have any questions? Were there any other details for this item, Superintendent Vidalis?
No, I think it specifies it. We have a floating easement that hadn't been fixed. And in order to preserve the integrity of the housing development, we've negotiated with the SFPUC to fix it in a specific location.
Thank you. There are no questions. Could I have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the San Francisco Public Utilities Commission easement amendment agreement as presented.
Second.
Thank you. We have a first and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Item 9D, approval of resolution number 21-12-08A, approving agreement to amend easement with the City and County of San Francisco through the San Francisco Public Utilities Commission pertaining to a portion of the SFPUC, is it Pilarcitos Pipeline right-of-way recorded on June 10th, 1862.
I can just provide explanation. This is a mirror of the previous item, except this is a resolution that you're accepting the approval of the agreement. In order for the SFPUC to place this on a meeting agenda, they need to have either minutes, approved minutes, or a resolution that approves the approval. So this is the resolution that goes with the action you just took.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry, and the reason why is because we won't have the minutes out in time
Yes,
for.
we would like to get this on their next agenda so we can move forward with our workforce housing project
Okay.
permits.
Thank you. Thank you for asking that for clarification, Trustee Jordan. Are there any other questions, comments? If not, I'd like to ask for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution as presented.
Second.
We have a first and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
This is a resolution, so we need a roll
Oh,
call.
I'm sorry. That's right. We need a roll call vote, please, Ms. Goveray.
Mr. Koo,
Aye.
Mrs. Brizuela,
Aye.
Ms. Jordan,
Aye.
Ms. Leah Inga Anawai,
Aye. Thank you. We will now move on to item 9F. Sunrun Inc. Solar Service Agreement for the JESD Workforce Housing Project. And the administration recommends approval of a 20-year solar services agreement with Sunrun Inc. to install and operate the solar panels and pay the district 0.145 cents per kilowatt hour or the first year of the initial term. The contract price shall increase at a rate of 2% annually upon each anniversary of the commercial operation date during the term. The monthly payment schedule will commence on the commercial operation date. This is part of the JESD Workforce Housing Project and meets minimum solar energy production requirements for a residential project. Do we have any questions or comments? If not, can I please have a motion?
I'll
I
make a
actually,
motion.
sorry, I
Question?
do have a comment. No,
Okay, thank you.
because I just remember at the education conference, we talked about putting more things in our schools to help save energy. And so I'm happy to see that we have our solar project on the agenda tonight. So sorry, Trustee Koo, you can move forward with your motion.
Oh, okay. I thought so. It looked like you were on the other page.
Your motion?
Sure. I'll make the motion to approve the 20-year solar services agreement with Sunrun Inc. to install the solar panels and pay the district 0.145 cents per kilowatt hour on the first year of the initial term as presented.
Second.
We have a first and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We will now move on to item 12. Board governance matters. 12A is the interview protocol and selection of questions for board member candidates.
So when this agenda was published, we had 3 candidates interested. This morning, we had a request by Mr. Jesse Lee to withdraw his application from consideration. Ms. Aria Cruz is also unable to be here. She wants to remain in consideration. We've interviewed her, you've interviewed her already. And she submitted a written statement. So when it's appropriate, I'd be willing to read it out to all of you so I can get it into the record. And then we have Mr. Ali, who's here. So I don't know, it's a different process. It's just one person. So maybe President Liangano, you can decide with your colleagues on the board how you wish to pursue the next part.
Okay. I'd like to open it up to the board. As stated, we have a candidate that has withdrawn. We have a candidate that has submitted her statement, and we also have a candidate present. So it's open for discussion or comment how we can proceed. I'd like to hear from the floor. I have a protocol that I'd like to move forward with, but I definitely like to hear and respect the comments from the floor.
I think we should move on. Let's do it.
Thank you. Can we then call Mr. Ali up? Mr. Ali, thank you for joining us. We'd like to invite you to offer your statement and possibly open up the floor to the board to ask any clarifying questions. So if you could join us, we'd appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. So what would you like me to do?
Offer, a statement, your remarks as to why you are pursuing this vacancy.
Okay. So thank you for inviting me back. I'm happy to be here. I served 9 years on this board, and I only took a break because I was finishing my master's degree, credential in specialized academic instruction, and attempting to get tenure at a high school. Somehow I did all of that during, distance learning and distance teaching. So I have the time again. And I really appreciate and value the time that I spent with all of you doing this work. And I can't think of a better candidate. So that's why I showed up. And, I had a couple chances to withdraw my name as well, but I knew that that wasn't the right decision. So here I am.
Thank you, Mr. Ali. I'd like to start to my left with Trustee Jordan. Any comments or questions for our candidate?
I actually don't have any questions. I do have a comment. Your leaving the board gave me the opportunity to be on this board, and we had that conversation. And so I am grateful for it. I have learned a lot in these last years, and I know that you, when you were on this board, you held yourself to high standard. You were a part of this community. You care about this community. And so I'm actually really grateful and happy to see you here in front of us today. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Brusuela?
Well, I've known you for many years, right? And I really appreciate that you're coming back here. And you've had the experience, you have the knowledge, and you have the love for our district. And so I'm really happy to see you here. So I'm not going to say too much stuff because they're going to think you paid me. But no, I'm really pleased that you're here. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Koo.
Same thing. It's good to see you again. I had more of a question, I guess, for you. I know that you've been off the board for a year, so I guess I was going to say, from your perspective, what do you see may have changed on the board or the work that we're doing, and sort of what do you want to come back and sort of focus and prioritize?
Mm-hmm. I can't really say what I see that has changed. However, I can talk about what I would like to focus on with your participation. And so that would be to have an understandable and effective budget that addresses the needs of all the students in the district and takes into account, what teachers are willing and capable of doing or to do. And definitely to work closely with the administration and, the curriculum and instruction person. I haven't met you yet, but just to make sure that we help our students, or that we're equipping our students to meet the challenges of, the modern world. So those are my main two focuses.
Thank you.
Thank you. I don't have any questions. I mean, you were a former colleague of ours here. You are a legislator, policymaker that has done a lot for this community, for our community. You have stated the accomplishments that you have achieved most recently during a pandemic. You made a decision to come back and pursue a vacancy that we desperately need to fill. I commend your passion and your commitment to our community, and I want to thank you for your time. It's definitely appreciated. We've been very fortunate to have 4 candidates. 2 of them, unfortunately, didn't work out. We've got 2 that we need to, we had 5 candidates, actually, now that I think about it. 3 are not with us. And tonight we will be making a decision on the 2 that we have to consider. I just want to thank you again for your service to our students, to our families, and your advocacy. I've seen you in the trenches, and I applaud everything that you do. So I'd like to ask Superintendent Vidal, unless you have any further comments, Mr. Ali?
No, not at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. If you wouldn't mind reading Ms. Cruz's statement, Superintendent Vidalis, thank you.
Gladly. Greetings. Good evening to all. A special greeting to the members of the Honorable School Board. Once again, I am here showing my interest to be a member of the team in carrying out the noble mission of the board to provide the students of the district a high-quality education in a safe, caring, and learning environment where each student demonstrates a spirit of respect, responsibility, and a commitment to academic and civic excellence. With a serious review of the purpose and full responsibilities of the school board, my oozing enthusiasm to join still prevails. I am reiterating formally my 7 basic reasons to share if given an opportunity, namely to wit. Be adept with set dates for the board, retreats, varied activities, and committee meetings. Attendance must be observed and absences be reported in due time for proper adjustment of planned agenda. 2, to actively participate in giving suggestions and opinions on issues on hand, sample of which are strategies to improve further students' achievements. Advocate for new innovations to uplift the morale and learning level of those below the normal parameters required to pass. Recommend incentives to those who exceed in achievement. 3, be sensitive and focus to the fiscal responsibility and solvency stand of the current and forecasted budgets. Apply proper check and balance to the issue on hand. My accounting background will be a plus factor. Priority should be given in this aspect as a must. 4, be deeply involved in organizational setup, long-range plans, and decision-making concerns. Full attention is needed as the district is unionized and the hierarchical positions is a major factor to be considered to achieve a positive result in plans envisioned. As a retired HR practitioner in a global corporation, I am confident I can humbly contribute some feedback if ever a need arises. 5, be able to suggest collaboration with other agencies and departmental corporations to be well informed of current issues. Recommend to the board attendance of varied professional seminars or retreats for the staff for their professional growth and development. New strategies and methodologies can be achieved out of the training, and upon return in their schools, they can implement the same. Total empowerment is normally achieved and gives personal satisfaction. 6, be a real leader. A leader that does not instill fear, but instead develop and train constituents. Intense observation and sensitivity is necessary in dealing with the process of CBA, collective bargaining agreement of the district. My experience negotiating with the radical union group in the past can help a lot. To be fair and inject a balanced equation in coordinating with the other party is of great importance. 7, as a member, one has to be quite visible and transparent in the school and community within one's zonal district. Share and shout success stories and learn from mistakes. Regularly give an update through memorandum or flyers about the programs, activities planned, and as much as possible encourage parents through the PTSA participation. Be ready to accept challenges with the end in view, always of achieving the goal set. Incidentally, humbled me, as I have mentioned in my initial interview, that I have completed my maximum full term as commissioner, COA, at San Mateo County and have earned laurels during my term. Recently, June 29, 2021, I was one of the awardees of the San Mateo Granddagers with community and religious contributions. Further, have experience working with the district for almost a decade and actually have the primary and secondary feel and outlook of staff. My records on file will speak for itself. In conclusion, I would like to share a thought, useful to everyone. Quote, quality of work is never an accident, as it is a result of persistent study, effective thinking, and sincere efforts to persevere to achieve success. Happy holidays in advance to all. Thank you. Submitted by Aria Ocampo Cruz.
Thank you, Superintendent Vidales. Well, we've now heard the statement from Ms. Cruz, and we have been given the opportunity to make comments and inquire why Mr. Ali is with us also this evening. So I'd like to open the floor for deliberation of the two candidates that we have at hand. And would also like to ask, after deliberation, that we make a motion to consider the candidates that we have before us. Trustee Koo, we'll start with you if you have any comments.
I mean, we've heard from Mr. Campo Cruz the last time we spoke. We all know, and we've heard from Mr. Ali. Do you want me to make a motion or just discuss it? I'll just leave my comments there, and I'll let everybody else sort of give comments first before.
Are we also to comment first, or we just?
Yeah, we're going to make comments based on the two candidates that we're considering. We're going to make comments about the two, and then we can definitely open the floor for a motion.
Okay. I mean, I've worked with Mr. Ali for almost 5 years. I know the work that he's done, and I have no hesitation that he would continue to do a great job as a trustee, personally.
Okay. I've known Mr. Ali for a long time, and I can vouch for the fact that he is well qualified and really can do a great job.
Thank you. Trustee Jordan?
Well, I kind of already made my comments earlier. So I've seen the work that Mr. Ali has done. Ms. Ocampo Cruz obviously is still a great candidate. However, would be my recommendation to move forward with Mr. Ali.
Thank you. I want to thank my board colleagues for your feedback and your comments during this time of deliberation. I want to thank Ms. Cruz for her commitment, and I appreciate that we had the opportunity to interview her in person, and her commitment to ensure that we hear from her this evening in her absence is definitely a testament to her commitment to serving her community. And so if you're listening in tonight, one, I hope you feel better soon. Happy holidays to you. And I want to thank you again for all of your service to our community. But I'm going to have to side with what I've been hearing to my left and my right. And Mr. Ali, it's unquestionable, in my humble opinion, your capabilities to sit with us again and to make the decisions that need to be made for the betterment of our district and our community. So I too would like to recommend and support you to fill this vacancy that we have. So the floor is open for a motion.
I want to make a motion. I'd like to make a motion that we select Trustee Ali to be our new school board member.
Second.
So we have a first and a second. Can we get a roll call vote, please, Ms. Coveray?
Mr. Koo,
Aye.
Mrs. Brizuela,
Aye.
Ms. Jordan,
Aye.
Ms. Leah Inga Anawai.
A resounding aye. We'd like to open the floor to you. Welcome again, Trustee Ali. The floor is yours. The floor is yours.
All right, well,
Do we want to hear his comments now or after he takes the loyalty oath, the
okay.
oath of office?
We're going to have to make it official.
Get up
Here we
here.
go.
Make it official.
Okay, Mr. Ali, if you would repeat after me. 10 years ago, you did this for the first time, so things come around. All right. I, Shaquille Ali,
I, Shakil Ali,
do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of California,
and the Constitution of California,
that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
that I take this oath freely without any mental reservation and purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
and that I will well discharge, repeat please,
That I will well and faithfully discharge
that I will well and faithfully discharge
the duties upon which I am about to enter.
the duties upon which I am about to enter.
Thank you.
Come on over. The floor is yours, Trustee Ali.
Well, thank you to all my fellow board members and all the people that are here tonight as well. And it's kind of funny to me that it feels like I never left, really. And, you know, one reason is that Bernie and Maria both kind of knew that I would be back. And I'll never forget something that Bernie said to me. He told me that he hoped that I kind of would lose my city council race so that he could ask me to get back on the board. So anyway, and Maria, you know, she knew I would be back. I tried to return my business cards and Maria told me to keep them and to still use them. So anyhow, I'm here ready to do work and I'm just glad to be back.
Thank you and welcome back. We will now move on to item D, and that is our governing board meeting dates and governance calendar for 2022. And the board is looking at approving the proposed board meeting dates and governance calendar. Do we have any comments or edits, recommended edits? If not, I'd like to ask for a motion.
I will make a motion that we approve the proposed board meeting dates and governance calendar for 2022.
Second motion.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
We will now move on to item E, scheduling annual reorganization meeting. Per Education Code 35143, the board reorganization meeting must be held in the 15 days following the second Friday in December. This year, that window is between December 10th to 25th. The board will discuss and select a date for its annual reorganization meeting. The floor is open for suggestions.
Not the 25th.
Let's do it really early so we have plenty of time for the holidays.
Would my fellow board members be open to just doing next Wednesday? Just like a week from today?
Yeah.
The 15th, right, I believe.
All right.
Fine. I'm available.
Superintendent is available. Are we all available on that date, same time?
1 week from today, 7 p.m.
Okay, we have a motion for that date. Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you all. We will now move on to item F, fiscal year 2021-2022, first interim budget review. Ms. Kessler, Assistant Superintendent of Business Services, and Michael Laurel, Director of Fiscal Services, will present the 2021-22 first interim financial report for the period ending October 31st, 2021. The administration recommends that the Board of Trustees review the first interim financial report, B, approve the filing of the certification of financial condition, and C, approve the revision of the adopted budget to correspond with the projected year totals for revenues and expenditures.
Good evening. So I have a little bit extra prepared because I wasn't sure I had to prepare in case somebody else wasn't going to be sitting in the fifth position there. And Mr. Lauro is here. You all know who he is. And Mr. Shaquille, I don't know if you are aware that Mr. Lauro is taking the position of Assistant Superintendent of Business Services at the end of this month. So
She's retiring.
yeah.
But she'll be
Yes.
back.
Yeah, this won't be. So we have the first interim report here for you, and it's to update you on the financial position of the district, as well as the current budget and the multi-year projection, and what has changed since the adoption of the budget, and also the certification that you will be assigning the first interim report. So the first interim report is a snapshot of the district's financial position as of October 31st, 2021. The second interim report will happen in March for the end of January 2022. And here we have the first interim, and it includes a multi-year projection for the 22-23 year and 23-24 year officially. And it includes 24-25 unofficially, but just as part of the presentation. Next slide, please. So this is a little extra slide, and it might be kind of interesting since you haven't seen this for quite some years, I believe. There are three possible certifications that can be given. And the first one is a positive certification, which is the one that we'll be asking for here. And that means that the district will be able to meet its financial obligations for the current and subsequent 2 fiscal years. Qualified certification means that it may not be able to meet its financial obligations either in the current year or in one of the 2 subsequent years. And a negative means it will not be able to meet its financial obligations. Once you approve the first interim with whatever kind of certification that you would choose to give it, it goes to the County Office of Ed for review. And actually, they have already reviewed a lot of it because they wanted to do that with the AB 1200 that they have approved for the increases in salary. And so they wanted to see this as well. Back. So, but just so that you know, if it were to be a qualified or negative certification, then the County Office of Ed must, and the State Controller's Office and FICMAT may intervene with a recovery plan and actions for the district, in which case you may not have direct ability to make decisions if that were to happen. Now, next slide, please. So moving from the adopted budget to the first interim, there have been changes to both the revenues and the expenditures. And here I'm going to go over just briefly the changes to the revenues. It's actually quite a small change, $500,000 increase in revenues. And as you can see, it's basically $750,000 increase due to the additional 15, actually it's 30% because it's 15 higher from 50%, from 50% to 65% concentration grant funding that the governor wanted. And so that is a $750,000 gain for us. although those funds are more restricted than the other S&C grant funds. This is the C part, and it is strictly related to the ratio of district direct support to students and students. So it is for that purpose. Yes,
So,
and if you don't mind speaking loudly, just because
okay,
the
no
masks are
worries.
hard.
So how does this, what's the accountability for that? Like, is there a line item that when you're hiring new teachers, you report that it came from these funds, or?
Well, we have to look at the ratios per school site from one year to the next year. We are still not certain how we haven't gotten proper guidance on how we have to report it or what kind of audit they're going to do on it. But particularly, and we'll get into this later on, that we've got declining enrollment. So where they were, when it originally came out and the information that we received, it made it look like the school sites had to have increased number of, it wasn't an actual ratio, it was an increased number of staffing, including custodians and, basically almost all the staff at a school site. But we have a 9% decrease in enrollment. So maintaining what we have is an increase, right? Except that we don't know if the state will see it the same way. So the regs on that aren't out and clear yet. If they're out, they're not clear enough for school services to tell us how to understand them. So we're waiting on that.
So far, we're just hiring more teachers?
I can't say what we would do on that. That would be something that both the curriculum department and superintendent would discuss and make recommendations to the board accordingly.
Yeah, I think at this point, we just said we'll maintain our staffing levels, and which increases our ratio.
So, and by the way, I'd like to welcome you back because I know that you have been always involved in the budget process and the district's finances. And I think that you've just been, in the past, were a real asset to the transparency and being able to speak about it in public forum. And I think that's wonderful. And thank you for coming back. Look forward to working with you for the next couple weeks.
10 days.
I think it's 13, actually.
Counting.
I look forward to working with you for longer than that. So I'll be here.
Yes, and Michael's great, and he has been with us for a year and a half, and I can vouch for his knowledge and his ability, and you guys are really in safe hands with Michael, and I really feel that from the top of my brain and the bottom of my heart. So the other only significant thing on here, because obviously $750,000 is greater than the $500,000 that it's gone up. So there's an increase in contribution to special ed, which acts as a decrease in revenues because it comes out of the unrestricted and goes into the restricted program. And that is just simply from a program last year that was budgeted, and it has to do with identifying students for special ed purposes in different ethnic groups and such. And the funds were not spent last year. And because they were in last year's budget, if we put it into the original adopted budget, then the same dollars would be in two budgets, right? So because when you put it in last year's budget, it decreases the unfunded balance that you start out with in this year. So it would be like budgeting the same dollars twice. So that is kind of, it's like carrying those funds over. Those are the two significant things. The other things are quite nominal. And especially, you look at state lottery, we're told what we're going to be getting. So we have to adjust accordingly. Next slide, please. So then how did the expenditures changed since the adoption of the budget. Expenditures increased by $237,000. It sounds, and it is a quite small amount, but it is made up of two significant areas, and one of them is carryover, so school site carryover between both the discretionary and S&C grant carryover, as well as the new donations that school sites get and carryover. That is $1.7 million right there. And so that's obviously higher than the $237,000. So the decrease comes from a transfer of expenditures of 15 of our teachers out of the general fund into the expanded learning opportunity grant. And this kind of could kind of follow that same idea of continued support of our students at the same number of staffing, the ratio is a smaller ratio, a greater ratio of staff to students. So these expenditures were transferred out to the extent that the expanded learning opportunity grant had available in order to support that. So those two, and then near the bottom there, you can see the state unemployment insurance. If you recall, our normal unemployment insurance is 0.05. And after this whole COVID draw on unemployment insurance, it went up to 1.23%, which is a huge increase. And school districts, they complained to the state and said, but, we weren't allowed to lay off everybody like industry was, and so many other agencies were able to lay people off, and school districts had to maintain those people. And not that we didn't want to, but, we had to, we were told to. And they just said it's not fair that we now have to pay that higher rate, much higher rate of unemployment insurance, because it was going to be a couple $100,000, I think about $250,000 more for us. And it's a burden on us, and we've maintained everybody. So they dropped it. They didn't drop it down. It's only 10 times the amount that it was before, which is much better than the 26 times that it was the increase. So, but there's a savings of $174,000 for us there, and workers' compensation also went down as well. Next slide, please. So when we put together, whether it's the budget or interims, anything that we put together, we have certain assumptions. We make assumptions that we are able to build our multi-year projection on. And so these are our assumptions. One of the bigger things is the COLA, and the COLA, we don't choose that. We're told what that is. So we put that in there. We don't have one-time funds in there for the out years, because the idea of one-time funds is they're supposed to be one time. The unduplicated percent, 64.44%, and that we've been very stressed about our unduplicated percent, because we're not doing the normal free and reduced applications for lunches, and they had to be direct certifications. Well, we were fearful that it would drop down to in the 50s percentile, but it ended up, the last I saw of it, which should be pretty darn close, it's 64.28%. So that is fantastic, because our S&C grant funds are based on that number. And we get a lot of S&C grant funds. And if it dropped down to 50, even below 55%, we would get no more concentration grant funds. And that whole $750,000 you just saw of increase, that would all go away, plus millions more. And our supplemental grant portion would also go down significantly. And this would really, really affect us. So I am really pleased at that. And then You'll see this several times. It's on other slides as well. The declining enrollment. We are losing our declining enrollment protection. We had a 2-year protection instead of a 1-year protection due to COVID. And I'll speak a little bit more about this later on. There's a whole slide dedicated to it. But in the process of losing our declining enrollment protection that we had for the 1920 year, that we could carry it on for 2 years, next year is the 3rd year, so we can't carry it on, and we get to regular declining enrollment, which means we have to recognize this year's declining enrollment and last year's declining enrollment. And again, there's a slide that's dedicated to this, and that's a $6.5 million decrease in revenues, in LCFF revenues, due to declining enrollment. Step and column is in here, the difference in STRS and PERS, and a realignment of the staff to student ratio, because we don't have the funds here forever to carry it on. So that's just aligning it to the students that we have this year, which again is a 9% decrease. It's a 31.2 FTE decrease, which saves the districts $2.7 million annually. And of course, if the children come back and if it grows, so will everything else. Next slide, please. What's not included in the multi-year projection? Well, all the tentative agreements that were just approved tonight, because they weren't approved prior to us doing it, so it wasn't included. However, here are what the amounts are, and what I am really wanting to show you there is the one-time cost as opposed to the ongoing cost. And this is what really makes this, the TAs affordable for the district, given our financial situation. The biggest costs to the district are one-time costs. And those one-time costs, one of them, of course, is for medical benefits. So that it's not increasing their coverage or what we're paying for it, except for we do cover a little bit more of the increase that was, 80% of the increase that they're going to receive in 2022. So the cap is still at the same level. It gives us the ability to act in the future as necessary, and not be locked into something that we can't afford in the future. And of course, if we can't afford to give our staff proper medical assistance, contributions to, it is definitely a desirable thing for the district to do. But it is also important that we maintain solvency, so that we are able to provide them with as much as we can, everybody with as much as possible. So 1.34 million to go into that reserve that we've been using for years has now depleted, and this will put funds back into it probably, I'm going to guess, last 2.5 years. And then that health and safety, that $3,000 per employee that is on paid status in December 1st of this year, that is going to be paid for out of the SR2 funds. Now the SR2 funds are in the unrestricted, in the restricted, so they wouldn't affect the unrestricted anyway, except, if we didn't have it there, then this would have to have been paid out of the unrestricted. So it helps us. So the ongoing costs of the 0.54%, either on schedule or with the restructure, has a total cost of $270,000 per year annually, and that includes the benefits, so statutory benefits on that. And so that is something that it's not a lot to be able to give, but it is, in good faith that we're trying to do what we can given our financial situation. Also not included, of course, I said that in the last slide as well, is one-time funds, one-time in nature. You don't put it into multi-year projections. ESSER 3, we have $5.5 million. You do have an ESSER 3 plan. I will show that, have a little summary of it at one of the last slides. We do not have today's expenditures being charged to those programs at this time. Whatever we do will follow the plan that has been approved, or that plan will be changed and approved by the board. And then the educator effectiveness, which Ms. Scott has talked about today, and which you approved the plan on that, is expenditures on that are not included in the multi-year projection. So right now, we're just talking about the multi-year projection. Next slide, please. So here it is, the thing I've been talking about, the multi-year projection, but also the current year. So the current year is the second column with numbers. And as you can see, it's got almost a $300,000 increase. And that is obviously because we've transferred expenditures over, and we've also been using a lot, and you'll see it in one of the later slides, a lot of the coronavirus relief funds have helped us to not deficit spend, because we've been able to charge many things to that. So in the out years, the 22, 23, and 23, 24 are the two official ones. 24, 25 again is not. And if you look at the bottom line of the yellow ones up there, the yellow rows, and you see the red bracketed numbers, that is our deficit spending. So 4.8 million, I can't see that.
3.951.
3.9, okay, so 3.0, we'll just call it 3.
No, it's just about 4 million.
Let me put my glasses on and look at this one. Yeah, okay, so 4. So basically 4.8 million, and then 4 million, and then 2.9 million. These are our deficit spending amounts. Now, I'd like to just kind of bring up that Gesundheit out there, sorry. October revenues, I'm just going to first speak through October revenues because that's what I've got data on. October revenues are 26% higher so far this year through October. State revenues are 26% higher than forecast. That is $11.2 billion more at this point than what was forecast. School districts get approximately 38 to 40%. So at the 40% level and at the percentage that we typically get, which is 0.0009, it is would be an additional $4 million for us if that happens. Now, Superintendent Vidalis went to a meeting, and at that meeting with Capital Advisors, I believe, which is a very reputable group, they stated that revenues were expected to be $32 billion above forecast. Now, I think what they've done here is they must have taken October, which is 1/3 of the year, and annualized that, because it pretty much comes to that. If they think that this is going to continue through the rest of the year. And if that were to happen, it would be $11 million for us. Now, how that would come to us, I don't know. Will it come as a categorical program? This particular governor likes categorical programs, which I'm not in favor of. The way I prefer the way Governor Brown did, one-time funds, give it to us, or put it into the base. I have a little bit more to say to that on another slide here when we just kind of focus on the deficit spending, okay? Next slide, please. So this is just showing our fund balance in a graph form. It's just kind of visually easier to see what happens to it. And in these, we did not have to transfer any funds from other funds. Any revenue, any money from other funds outside of the general fund. How about saying it that way? Next slide, please. So here is our declining enrollment. And it's quite dramatic. I wanted it to be dramatic because it's important, because it's the declining enrollment of this district that's really causing us to suffer. If it wasn't for the declining enrollment, we wouldn't be in this situation, this difficult situation, challenging situation that we're in. So, I mean, the numbers speak for themselves. This here says declining enrollment and ADA funding. So what I've got there is the actual ADA that we have for each year. That's not necessarily what we're funded each year, because it's just what the actual ADA was. So I'm showing you where the losses are and attaching the dollar amount associated with those losses based on the amount that we were getting earlier this year. That number has also changed, but not too much, that 10,384. So, and the change each year. So we have lost since 15-16, 1,217 ADA, which means it's a little bit higher in enrollment, because we pretty much have a 96.5% attendance rate. 20% reduction. That's huge. 20% reduction. The only thing I want to say is we're not alone in this. Okay, we're not the only one. It is all over California, and for quite some time it was not in Central California, but now it's apparently there too. I think a lot of people are deciding to move out of California. I'm not the expert on this, so I can't say exactly why, but we are not alone. And that is a good thing, because if we were alone, we would be a small fish we'd be a small fish in a huge pond. We wouldn't be a big fish in a small one, or a small one, where we'd be a small one in a great big pond, and we would go totally unnoticed. But it's not going unnoticed. Next slide. Oh, so this year, I'm sorry, if you can go back for a second. This year, that's a 9% decrease, and last year it's a 4% decrease based on the prior year. So now, thank you. Next slide. So again, declining enrollment. I don't know, I can say this all day long, because that's the biggest thing, right? So we have declining enrollment. It's reiterating what was on that past slide, 496 fewer students than last year, and then another 228 from the previous year. And so in our LCFF funding, it's a $6.5 million decrease from one year to the next. Now, what I do want to say is 2.4 million of that 6.5 million was already recognized in our adoption, because we already based losing our enrollment down to last year's number. We just didn't have it recognizing this year's number, because we didn't know what it was going to be yet. So instead of being 6.5 million decrease since adoption, it ends up being 4.1 million decrease since adoption. So that is showing the change in LCFF up top, and the bottom, what that's showing is that's the change in the deficit spending. And of course, there's more to deficit spending than just the LCFF revenues. There's other things. So what I did want to say is the Assembly Oversight Hearing Discussion. There was an Assembly Oversight Hearing Discussion for the 2022-23 ADA cliff, as it's called. And this discussion just happened a couple of days ago. And they came up with several options, like what are they going to do to help schools with this, school districts, because it's a serious problem. And so they came up with 3 basic options. One of them is to make a 3-year ADA average, and to do that for a 5-year period. And that 5-year period would encompass the entire TKK, or should I say the TK for all implementation period. Okay, so it'd be a 3-year average, which would soften the blow. Another one would be to bulk up the LCFF base funding level, beginning in 22-23. And the third one would be to move to an enrollment-based funding instead of an ADA-based funding. Now, the only one that really helps us would be number 2, door number 2. So bulk up the LCFF base funding level, because the others is, well, first off, if they go to enrollment, our enrollment is down, right, a lot. And they usually, if they do something like that, they usually adjust it for what attendance would be. And then on top of that, there's the incentive to reduce absenteeism and chronic absenteeism is challenged because there's no financial part to it. Not that we would want to, but throughout the district, the state, who knows? It just doesn't encourage people to encourage their students and families to bring their kids to school and to work on that problem. So the only reasonable one for us is really bulking up the LCFF. And we still, if they did that, we still need to be financially responsible and for a financially sound district. And whatever it happens to be, we still need to right size whatever needs to be right size, whether it's staffing programs, and determine what programs are the priorities and which are not, to the extent that we need in order to maintain solvency. Next slide, please. So it's been great. I mean, we had all these one-time funds that saved us. And now we have a whole bunch of coronavirus one-time funds, which have also saved us. If you look at between 2019-20 and 2019-20, 2019/20 and 2020/21, sorry, we used $7.8 million to help us. And in the current year, from all the different funds combined that we've got, right? In the current year, we're using $6.3 million. So for the 2021-22 year, that was a little easier for me. We're spending the $6.3 million, and these are the different areas in which we spend the $2 million for the health and safety stipend, $1.9 million for maintaining teachers and stuff, that transfer that we made over of the 15 teachers and subs, technology, staff development, counseling and mental health, extended learning, student meals, and classroom furnishings for distance learning purposes, because they had a lot of tables and such, and facilities like window ventilation and other things. All of those make up that $6.3 million. And then for the two future years, so 2022-23 and 2023-24, got that one out, was the plan for the ESSER 3 funds. And these are the areas in which that plan had to come together really fast in order to meet the required deadlines. And of course, that plan can be changed and approved, but it's $3.5 million for additional instructional minutes, $1.34 million for professional development, and then these other $700,000 for these other areas of technology, meals, furnishing, and ventilation. That is it, except for the next slide, which is asking for a positive certification. We will be able to meet our financial obligations in the current and subsequent 2 years.
I have a question. So if we're excuse me, if we've been averaging about $1.8 million that we're losing due to declining enrollment. Is that the same trend for the whole county? Do you know?
I can't speak to this year so much. I don't know the enrollment numbers for this year, but for the past years, I remember I had gone to a declining enrollment workshop, and it had a 10-year forecast. And that 10-year forecast at the time, I don't know why I remember all this, but was 17% reduction statewide at the time. Of course, they didn't know COVID was going to happen then, right? And and I came back and I looked at ours and I'm going, well, it looks like we're right on track for that. And then I had asked them because the presenters didn't have it broken down to counties, and I asked them if they could get me that information, and they did. And man, we were right in there with our county. So at the time, now that does not include this COVID time, but up until COVID, county, we were right in there, but that 17% is an average, and Central Valley was actually increasing. So if you've got anybody who's increasing, somebody's got to take up the slack for the decrease, right? And so, we could very well be in that. And of course, we're in such an expensive area that it
I
makes
think
sense, right?
to just shed a bit of light on that, we have 23 school districts in San Mateo County, 18 of which are considered basic aid. So they're not dependent on enrollment for their funding. They're just dependent on their property tax revenue, which has been going up. 5 of us remain as dependent on enrollment. So you don't really see the distress in our county because now school districts are getting more money and they have fewer students. Our basic aid districts, many of our neighbors. And then there's those of us who are dependent on enrollment. Us, Millbrae, I believe Burlingame, Pacifica, and there's one more, I can't think, Bayshore. 5 of us left. And a few of those are on the verge of becoming basic aid within a year or two. We're far from that. So it is particularly depressing, not distressing, to see many of our neighboring school districts thrive in this time because they get more money because property taxes are going up. They have fewer students and fewer expenses. They can do things that we cannot. So.
And they get to keep that extra money.
And they get to keep this money. So when you hear of other districts doing stuff that are right next to us, remember, there's just 5 of us, and I believe all 5 of us, different sizes, are losing students. Even Bayshore is losing. They're not losing as many, but if they lose 10 students, that's a big bump. They only have 400. So that's a lot of student percentage for them to lose. So just keep that in mind when you think about we can look at San Francisco Unified. They are enrollment funded and they're experiencing these big challenges as well. But being in the Bay Area is tough. There's only 100 basic aid districts in the state, and I think 70 of them are in the Bay Area. We have most of them are here. Between Marin, Alameda, Contra Costa, and San Mateo counties, we have a lot of the basic aid.
Well, thank you. The reason why I asked is because we lost the protection, declining enrollment protection, and I wasn't sure why the agreement was just over, basically.
I'm sorry, that last part?
Why don't we have the declining enrollment protection anymore? Was it just a certain
Okay,
amount of
because
time?
we actually do have declining enrollment protection, but declining enrollment protection basically is you get to use your ADA as opposed to enrollment, your ADA from the current year or the past year, whichever is higher. And from COVID, what they did is they let us use 2019-20 for 2 years instead of just the one. And so we're losing that portion of it.
So essentially, the ADA or the enrollment,
Next year.
yeah, the enrollment goes down 2 years, right? Since we had 1920, which had an elevated enrollment and attendance, right? And then we have a year that we lose enrollment like any other year. And then we have a pandemic and lose even more.
Yeah.
So then we go down 2 steps on a staircase instead of 1.
And very steep steps this time.
Yeah,
right?
so it's compounded.
Not to code. So, but if next year, if we do get more students next year, we get to choose the higher of whichever year it is. So clearly we would use next year. So hopefully some students will come back. And thank you, Mr. Vidalis, Superintendent Vidalis, for thinking about the basic aid districts. But that's really concentrated in the peninsula here and such. It's not really, much of California is not like that, but nothing like equal opportunity, huh? So glad we have it.
Do you have a question, Mr. Koo?
Yeah, I have a couple questions. Or are you, okay. So we talked about the increase in the contribution for the special ed. With declining enrollment, are we also seeing a decrease in our special education students? And then I guess my question would be, what do we plan to do with that increase of contribution to special ed, to the special ed programs?
Oh, that increase, that's because there's, well, first off, it's a curriculum thing as to how those funds are going to be spent. But there was a plan that was being made to how to not over-identify the students, right? So the money was not spent last year, and so it's transferred into being a budget this year. And when that transfers into being, we have to have that, is not a choice for us to determine whether we want that or not. We are required to do that because of our identification process. And I'm not sure if I'm really answering that question for you, or if that's really more of a curriculum question to answer.
Did I need to repeat the question, Mr. Vidal?
Yeah, please.
The increase in contribution to the special ed funds, what do we plan to do with it? And the second part, I may re-ask again, because there is something that I think that you may be able to help with.
So I think if you remember, what is it called, the CSEA?
CSAs.
The CSA's program, the plan that we approved last year, and then we approved a second plan again this year. So that's what the funds are being used for. So it's the end goal is that we would improve our ability to provide instruction to our English learners so that they're not so susceptible to being identified as special education students in out years. And so even though we've met that goal, 3 years ago we didn't, and so we have to develop a plan to address that from 3 years ago. So, which doesn't make any sense at all, but we just do what we have to do just so they don't bug us. So essentially, so the part of this is, the plan was adopted like in March. Last year, we only have essentially 2 months to spend it. We did some, but we didn't do it all, so we have to spend it this year. So we have to pull it from last year.
If we don't spend it this year, which is kind of the second part, then do we lose the funds, or how does that work?
We have to spend it.
We have
Yeah,
not- okay,
yeah, we have
got
to
it.
allocate a certain percent of our Title I funds for this purpose, and we need to show how we spent it, or else they'll bug us.
Got it.
So,
And then we talked about the one-time funds that we keep receiving, and obviously how we've been able to put that towards some salary schedules or one-time funds for our staff. I know I had asked this question before, and I just kind of want to put it out in the public for you to answer in terms of the reason why we are unable to do the reoccurring, I guess, not reoccurring. We're unable to put it as a part of their salary for it to be on a multi-year schedule for an increase. We're giving them the one-time funds because of, obviously, we're unsure of what funding we're going to receive in future years. And I just want you to say that on the record so that we understand, like, the reason why. Again, some of the approvals that we did tonight were not for what was originally requested of from our unions, and we did it from did what we could based on one-time funds that we received. And I guess I just want to make sure that that is still accurate and correct as we move into future years.
Okay, so I'm having a hard time hearing that because.
Can you
because
hear?
that's- but you
Sorry.
can.
Did
can
you hear
answer
what I
that.
said? Yes.
Yeah, so with one-time funding, we're able to afford, in good faith, a health and safety stipend per FTE to our employees in all bargaining units. Since we don't have ongoing, as you can tell in this first interim report, we don't have ongoing revenues to support our current spending, and we are concurrently deficit spending. So if we were to give a big increase to salaries on schedule and have that going year after year, that would eventually eat all of our fund balance. And that's when FICMAT, or the Fiscal Crisis Management Assistance Team, would come in, and the state would essentially take over the district. So to circle it back around, we're using one-time funds for a one-time health and safety stipend off schedule. And we will revisit again once the January budget comes out for the governor, and once again when the May revision comes out, to see if part of the revenues that the state is supposedly getting, if that's going to affect us or not. So, but at this time, with the information that we know, we're not going to have the ongoing revenues to support those kinds of increases.
Perfect. I just needed that.
Okay,
statement
yeah,
on record.
I had a feeling that that's what it was, but I couldn't. it wasn't
Sorry.
Quite clear enough.
I
I'm
need to
sorry.
speak into the mic.
I can't hear already. So the masks just go, oh my gosh.
No worries.
I'm like, whew. But yeah, in negotiations, we want to give what we can, and ongoing stuff, it doesn't stop eating, right? And if we don't have the ongoing funds to support ongoing expenditures, if we are able to do something one time, at least it doesn't put us in a compromising situation that we can't afford it in the future. That is something that's really, really important for a district, because sometimes it's really nice and exciting and you want to be able to give a lot. We want to. But if it's not sustainable, then you're headed for disaster. And we don't want to put everybody through that.
Again, we appreciate the transparency there. And the last question I have, and it's basically kind of reiterating what you just kind of mentioned. So the current projected budgets for future years, obviously that could change based on monies that we will receive if we receive more one-time funds. And so right now it's showing deficit spending. However, that could potentially change.
Well, and here's the thing. It's like, I truly believe the state has got to do something. And even if it's one-time funds like Governor Brown did over and over and over again, the good thing about one-time funds is that it keeps us from, using up all of our reserves and depleting our fund balance. The bad thing about one-time funds is it makes it very difficult to give anything ongoing, because it can be just stopped the following year, or it could become a categorical program and only be used for certain things. And now you're committed to you've got it on the salary schedule. So, but it's still good because getting it, because at least you're not destroying your fund balance. And, we've been knowing this for years, and all of us and you have been trying to work with it. But we certainly didn't expect the declining enrollment to happen like this. I mean, nobody expected this. So yeah, and that's the whole point. Like in negotiations, when we negotiate with all of our units and such, we need to look at our financials and see what we can afford. And that's when we,
And that's where, we consistently speak about, what can board members do? You'll be attending receptions in the next couple of months. Our legislators will be there, and the message needs to be, we need to not just give education more dollars, which they have. but you need to give more dollars in a general way. Like, don't give us more money to do a new program. We can't even turn on the lights. Like, give us money to turn on the lights and open the doors, improve the base funding. And that's not a message they'll hear from San Mateo County, because like I said, 18 of the 23 school districts are basic aid. So they won't be hearing this message, our legislators, from San Mateo County school districts, unless the 5 that are left, or the 1 district to our north, make this message loud and clear. So we need more funds given to a generalized purpose instead of specific extra program. We also need that too, but first let's fund the base well. So as you have these conversations, so what's going on? Hey, listen, we need this. It's like, and I think, the more we're out there, we're communicating that, hopefully the more it gets into. Legislators in other parts of California are hearing it from all their school districts because they don't have the basic aid concentration. But our San Mateo County legislators need to hear it from the remaining ones of us that are still around.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
Great questions. Thank you. Do we have any questions, Trustee Buswella or Trustee Ku?
Oh, I do. So I just want to say thanks for the presentation. I wanted to let you know too that during CSBA, I made sure to attend a multi-year projection workshop with Superintendent Vidales. They talked an hour just about this table alone. So just wanted to just let you know that I appreciate your budget presentation, but also I think that also helped and really handy, especially with what you presented tonight. I know you mentioned that the Capital Advisors Group sort of made a projection in terms of budget that was much higher in terms of sort of additional reserves. You said up to 32 billion. I'm guessing that won't come into effect until the January governor's budget proposal and the May revise. That's something that you guys can't add into the current multi-year projections. Am I correct?
Okay, so.
So I'll answer to that. Yeah, so based on, we don't include in our multi-year assumptions anything that's not coming from the governor and the legislative office directly. So when the governor does his first budget in January, we'll have just the tip of the iceberg of what we're kind of expecting. And then in May, he'll have a May revise. And so we'll get a little bit closer to what we think we're going to get. And then it won't be, if you can remember, and I think it's in July, when he passes his budget, that's when we'll know for certain what the funding will be. So to put this, to paint a picture, right? At the beginning of the year, we thought we were going to get 50% supplemental concentration grant, and it ended up being, we got 65%, and we got the additional $790,000, right? So those changes happen, and we won't really know until July when he passes his budget.
So when we come back with it, when he comes back with the second interim, the governor's January proposal will be out, and the multi-year projection will be based on that. So these numbers could very easily change for that. And then when we go to adopt the budget, what happens, we come back in May, we hear what the May revise is, and we adjust the revenues in the budget. And if we have to do expenditures as a result, then we'll do that as well. And that's what would come to you for the adopted budget. And then the legislature will pass it by June 15th. The governor will sign it prior to the end of June. And we will make adjustments accordingly. And then we come back and update you on how it affects the budget. And then the following first interim would include those changes. Okay. So hopefully the second interim will have some really promising things in the multi-year projection. And I honestly think it will be better than this. Because with the revenues as high as they are, unless something tanks, I can't, 26% higher in a 4-month period. It's, I think the trajectory is quite good.
Okay, cool. So that pretty much, I know these are just sort of projections at the current moment,
Oh, yeah.
but there's a lot that can potentially change even the next month or so with all the new budgets and additional sort of revenue coming into the state.
I'll just nod yes. I'm sorry.
And I think you answered the question, so I think we're all good.
Thanks. It just absorbs
Yeah.
the,
It was hard to hear you. It was hard to hear you right there.
the enunciation for my great hearing ability. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions?
I don't have any more questions, but just one comment is that it's always a good thing when the school district can certify as positive for the budget, and I'm pleased and happy. I know there's things that we need to monitor and pay attention to and possibly adjust. However, this certification as positive is a very good thing. So thank you.
Yeah, I think the comments and the questions are very helpful, especially for the public to hear. I know recently, a lot of times when we've been seeing many of our districts flooded with this extra funding, that also comes with a misconception of, there are things that can continue, but you've hit it right on in explaining that these one-time fundings unfortunately can't always support many of the things we imagine and dream to have in our districts. It's not that we don't want them. We definitely know what we need. And sometimes there's a misinterpretation when we do see these extra fundings that we know will not be seen again, or at least projected to be seen again. So I appreciate hearing the explanation, and I appreciate that the public gets to hear that, because I know that I've been getting those inquiries like, why isn't this happening? The district's been receiving so much money. Why can't things be done differently? But the reality is the words are, these are one-time funding. These are not fundings that we see that are consistent to be, streamlined, like some of the standing grants, some of the other funding that we have on an annual basis. So I thank you. Thank you for sharing the clarification and transparency. And so we are tasked tonight to, as recommended by the administration, to take action on this interim budget. So I'd like to open up the floor for a motion.
I would like to make a motion that we approve the filing of the certification of financial condition and approve the revision of the adopted budget to correspond with the projected year totals for revenues and expenditures.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you both. We will now move on to, as we continue our tradition, Trustee Ku's favorite part of the agenda. Item 13, Board Policies, Administrative Regulations. Item A is Board Policies and Administrative Regulations for June 2021, CSBA Board Policy Update, second reading. Do we have any discussion? And if not, the board will review revised board policies, administrative regulations from 2021 CSBA policy updates as stated in a second reading. If there's no discussion or inquiry, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the second reading of the June 2021 CSBA board policy updates as presented.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We will now move on to item 14, persons wishing to address the board on unagendized or closed session items. This portion of the agenda is available for individuals to comment on or address the board on any issue that is under the board's jurisdiction and not on the agenda, or an item addressed in closed session. The maximum time allowed for any speaker is 2 minutes. Do we have any speaker cards? Okay, we do not have any speaker cards for this evening. Thank you, Ms. Covere. We will now move on to item 15, governance team member comments, reports, and board meeting reflection. We'll start with you, Trustee Brusuela.
Well, I think we had a great board meeting, and I'm glad for all the information that we're able to discuss and bring forth, and to welcome our new board member.
Thank you, Trustee Brusuela. Trustee Jordan?
Our board is whole again. So exciting. I'm very happy to have a full board again. I'm excited for what we have in the future. I'm excited to see the next report for our budget. And I really thank you, Ms. Kessler and Mr. Laurel, for presenting that to us today. I want to say happy holidays. Everyone remain safe and healthy. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Ali.
I think I've said enough tonight, but yeah, I'm happy to serve, and I'm just looking forward to seeing what we can do to continue to set trends. As long as I was on the board, our district was always in the forefront of attempting whatever we can to enhance the core curriculum, with student supports and services. Excuse me. So I know Trustee Koo, asked me about my focus. When you're in an interview position, you don't want to say too much. But now that I'm sitting here, there is more. There's more. So, ethnic studies, we need to address disrespectful names of schools and even our district, really. So there are other issues. And of course, making sure that we, encourage everyone to be vaccinated and boosted and to stay safe.
Thank you. Trustee Koo?
I just wanted to say again, welcome back, Trustee Ali. I look forward to working with you for another year at least. I thought it was a good meeting. Thank you for the budget presentation, and just happy holidays.
Thank you. I have here some names as we move towards closing out the meeting to our closed session. I'd like to actually ask to add one more name, and I apologize, Superintendent Vidalis, I forgot to mention. And the first name is Pastor Lema Sangi Briggs, who used to live at the end of Lincoln. And she was a strong advocate in the Pacific Islander community. And I have mad respect for her, but I want to mention the importance of vaccination. A lot of us believe why or why not we shouldn't, but for the safety of our community, I'd like to continue to encourage those who can to get vaccinated. Unfortunately, she lost her battle, her month-long battle to COVID-19. All of her children were children and students of our district. They all graduated from here and moved on to Jefferson Union High School District. She still has a young son, but they have since moved to Central Valley. And he started here, went to MH Tobias, and then they moved out of the district. But it saddens me that we continue to be faced with this pandemic in this way and this loss. So I'd like to add her to the list this evening, if I may. I welcome you back as well with open arms, as your wisdom was missed, and definitely welcomed to have back with us. As you have stated, there are many other issues that we look forward to tackling together as a board, as a community. But I'd also like to extend my sincere appreciation to our district as we move forward to taking our winter break. I hope and pray that each of you get to spend time with those that mean something and love ones that you may be able to interact with safely. And I just want to give my gratitude to my colleagues to my left and my right and our administrators, because we put in long hours outside of these meetings to ensure that we can do this work. And I appreciate the increase that we got tonight. My kids appreciate the increase that we got tonight, because I promised them when I'm not home that they get to keep that money. And so that's where my stipend goes for the time that I'm not with them, or the time that I'm sitting in front of a screen or reading my backup. And that has been my commitment to my family for the past 6 years. And so I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for the opportunity to serve. And I get emotional because I see a lot of people struggling just to be I want to thank our educators. I want to thank you and your families for continuing to hold us up. And I want to thank our students and our parents. It's not easy. It's not easy. I've seen parents give up, literally give up, and I don't blame them. But we have teachers, we have administrators, we have board trustees, we have people who continue to want to do the heavy lifting. So please don't stop doing what you're doing. You may not always get the thank yous that you're deserving of, but we appreciate you more than we could ever convey. So thank you. So if there aren't any other comments, I'd like to move forward to convening to our closed session. And we'd like to embrace a moment of silence and adjourn in memory this evening, December 8th, 2021, of Lavana Faye Brown, mother of Shirley Eisen, campus safety assistant at Thomas R. Policita Middle School. Naraman Ali, mother of Nadia Falaha, former executive assistant student services at the district office. Greg McCulloch, brother of Sandy McCulloch, former assistant superintendent of educational services, and Pastor Lema Sangi Briggs of Daly City, California.